Today, let's break down the M16. The Cold War M16 was one of the meta guns at the beginning of the year, along with the AUG. With a great TTK, pretty good bullet velocity, and almost no recoil, the M16 was a nightmare from medium to long range. You would notice that you got shot, and next thing you know, you were downed. It got nerfed a few times, and then everyone stopped using it. But after all the changes to TTK, is it time for the M16 to come back? In this build, we're using the Agency Silencer, 20.5 inch task force barrel, axial arms 3x optic, field agent foregrip, and 45 round mags. If you feel like you're burning through ammo too fast though, you can definitely use the 60 round mag, although just know it will significantly increase your ADS time. So let's get into the stats, starting with mobility. Its ADS time is at an average 300 milliseconds. Its reload times are 3.38 seconds from empty and 2.55 if you leave at least one bullet in the mag. In order to be competitive, you should definitely leave at least one burst in your magazine. And its mag cap is 45, so you'll burn through that pretty quickly. Its movement and sprint speeds are pretty great, but this is expected from a Cold War weapon. But its ADS strafe speed gets a score that is average, but this is a good thing, since many SMGs are in this category. But its sprint out and attack sprint out times are average as well, so don't treat it actually like an SMG. Its stability is 2T, which isn't the greatest for a long range weapon, and its velocity is only 1000 meters per second, which again isn't really that great for a long range weapon. And lastly, its rate of fire is 6.85 rounds per second or 411 rounds per minute. But remember, this is with burst delay included, so it gets a mobility score of 33. Its recoil is actually still extremely low, and the only reason that I move side to side is because of its aiming stability, otherwise it would be really easy to use. But because of that, it's only usable up to 75 meters if you're spam firing it. But if you learn to control the vertical recoil, or mount even, you can be extremely accurate. So it gets a recoil score of 36. Now for its damage. The M16 has no drop-off range, so it deals the same amount of damage no matter what range you're at. I know it says 100 meters, but I put that there to show the impact of bullet velocity. Just treat the second row of scores as anything between 33 and infinity. The damage scores will still stay the same. From 0 to 33 meters, when comparing damage locations, you will lose to pretty much everything. If you're only hitting headshots, you'll need to fire 2 bursts, and if you're hitting anywhere else, you'll need 3. And from 33 to infinity, it's a similar story. You still need 2 bursts per head and 3 bursts for anywhere else, but at least if you're only hitting headshots, you are now below average. But things start getting a bit different when you start mixing shot locations. It doesn't matter when you hit it, but as long as you get 1 headshot in with literally any shots anywhere else in the body, you now only require 6 shots to kill. This means that up close, your TTK is now pretty average, and that's a good thing. And at longer ranges, you're above average, so you're competitive. But we don't count that for the damage score, so it gets a damage score of 22.5. Just know that you can improve it if you know how to hit your shots. So when we add up all the scores, we get a final score of 91.5. And as many as you know, this score is pretty low. But we all know that sometimes a weapon doesn't actually match its score because of specific things, like the ability to get a 2-burst kill. So what's the best way to use the M16? Pretty much like before, just with a little less range. Your best bet is to definitely use it at medium range, and the more of the person's body is showing, the better, because if someone's head glitching 50 meters away, there's a little chance that you're actually going to be able to hit them. This thing does have vertical recoil, and while it's easy to pull down, sometimes it's a little easy to overshoot. I'm sure though if you train with it every day, you will learn the pattern and be able to be pinpoint accurate, but for the average person just trying it out, this will not really be a thing. And at really longer ranges, it is really difficult to counter snipe with this. So hopefully you have someone with a sniper rifle on your team. But even at medium range, it is still pretty difficult to get that 2-burst kill. I always end up looking at my footage again and yep, I missed 1 bullet because it went right past his neck. So that 2-burst kill ends up becoming a 3-burst kill, and sometimes they just happen to get away during that time. And that's another thing too. Ever since they increased the burst delay, it just gives the enemy a little more time to react, or more likely, just duck out of cover. There's been so many times that with another weapon, I could have had them down before they could have really reacted, but because of that burst delay, the enemy gets away. So you have to be extremely accurate when you're using this weapon if you really want that 2-burst kill. If you manage to get 1 headshot within your first burst, that is extremely great because that means their armor is basically done for. And if they notice this, they may panic and try to play it, or if they try to fight back, well, you have a major advantage. But that's the reason many people just run away after getting a burst from this. So the M16 is a pretty good weapon if you have the skill. And if you can manage to get that 2-burst kill, then its TTK is extremely competitive. It's up there with the Fara and the EM2, which I consider to be the best long-range weapons. However, unlike those two weapons, the M16 cannot stretch out that far, unless you mount. If you miss one shot, that means you probably have to get an extra burst. The other weapons don't punish you for missing like the M16, they're just way more forgiving. And you can only get that extremely competitive TTK if you hit a headshot. The other two weapons, get those basically if you hit any shot anywhere in the body. And yes, technically the M16 does deal a really good amount of damage really quickly within its burst, but that means you would have to pop in and out of cover. And while this tactic may sometimes be successful, other times it just may get you killed. So by now you can probably tell that the M16 is a high risk, high reward weapon, except its reward is to be just as good as the better long range weapons. So use the M16 if you got the skill to learn the recoil pattern, because if you do, you can be just as good as someone with a Fara or EM2. So that's the M16. Have you tried it recently? And if so, what do you think about it? Do you agree with me or disagree? And if there's any other weapon, build, or part of the game you want me to break down, let me know and you may see it on the next Community Wednesday. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it or it's helped you in any way, let me know by leaving a like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.